The Kimberly Magic Academy isn't like any other magic academy that you can think of. Although you can say that the school is so strong, about 80% of the students graduate yearly, because the others have been consumed. It's the beginning of a new academy year, and several students in hopes of becoming magicians register for the academy. They are set to experience the excitement of being new students, and that excitement doesn't leave them. While some of them are glad, an entire team of 6 students who are the main characters of the anime practically have no idea about what they are going to encounter in this new school, but they remain optimistic regardless. One of them, Oliver Horn, is the first to pass through the walkway to enter the school. On his way, a flower starts speaking to him. He calls the flower Madam. As Madam tells him, he looks very anxious. He asks Madam if she can recognize how he looks and if he indeed looks anxious. She tells him that he should at least be cheerful about his new resumption, even though he doesn't know about the terrible future that awaits him. He smiles and tells her he will heed her advice. As he walks away, he wonders if that is the same way the flower sows fears into the heart of every student resuming school. He thinks about her words about the terrible future and admits that she may be right, because he really doesn't know the kind of future that awaits him in that school. He stops walking when he sees a female student, Katie, standing in front of him in a fearful manner. Katie has also heard the words of Madam, and she is very afraid because of the way the flower has spoken to her. She thinks about the terrible future the flower means, hoping it would be a joke and not a reality. Another male student, Guy Greenwood, who sees Katie, realizes that she is very scared and afraid. He approaches her to console her and tells her that she doesn't have to worry about what the flower says. He tells her they are Magiflora, and it is rumored that they feed on the magic particles that are around, which makes them behave weirdly. He tells her that those kinds of flowers around that side are even weirder than she can imagine. She tells him that she likes fauna too and she is glad she can see fauna around the school. They try to get to know each other better, and when he asks her what kind of fauna she likes, she says she likes any, big or small, and even the slim. Their sweet conversation is interrupted when another female student, Michelle, screams at another male student, Pete, because Pete is about to step on Madam. Pete asks him if he knows what Madam will do to him if he steps on her, and Madam also calls him a rude student. Pete picks his bag from the floor, adjusts his glasses, and says it isn't like he has asked Michelle for help in the first place. Just as he is about to continue his journey, another student enters. She looks so different from the others and isn't even wearing the normal clothes they could have inferred other students would put on. She looks like a samurai, and the other students wonder who she is. With her prideful attitude flying behind her, the young lady, Nano Hibia, walks beside all the students and goes her own way. Just like Madam's normal way of scaring the students, she attempts to scare Nano in the same manner and tells her that she has a different attire. But Nano doesn't even give her the attention she seeks and she walks away. Oliver is so attracted to her. He doesn't know if it is because of the way she is dressed and how it is different from the way other students have dressed, or because of her presumed strength and look. All he knows is that it feels like fate. After the fated meeting of these 6 students, they all join the other students to watch the first parade of the school. The parade starts with the passing of fauna. When Guy sees the fauna, he recalls that Katie had earlier told him that she loves fauna and enjoys seeing them. He looks at her, wondering if she will be excited, but he sees she looks more disturbed than excited. He asks her if she is no longer in love with fauna as she claimed, but she tells him that fauna isn't the problem. Instead, she has a problem with the fact that the school is making a troll parade in front of them. In that same parade, they have seen flowers, fauna, a dragon, and a troll. Katie tells Guy that it isn't good, as they have captured a troll to parade. She claims a troll is just a species like humans, and if it's not the case that humans invaded their circle, there is no reason trolls would find their way into the midst of humans. Guy doesn't share the same opinion. He tells her that trolls aren't even innocent as she makes them seem to be. He reminds her that it's these same trolls that destroy human farms and even kill humans. In his opinion, trolls are just like any other monsters who have been captured and can be used in any way. This triggers Katie even more. She refuses to accept what Guy is saying, and his words make her even angrier, turning the conversation into an argument. Pete, who is standing in front of them, reading his book, gets angry that they are using their arguments to disturb him. He warns them to stop, and Oliver tells them that they can resolve their individual differences later. They can talk better when they eventually know each other's names, because at this point, they are still strangers. Katie realizes that Oliver is right. As she is about to introduce herself, someone releases a spell on her and starts controlling her legs to make her run towards the troll. At first, Oliver and Guy assume she is doing it purposely and try to call her to stop. But she screams that her legs are running on their own. They figure that she is under a spell, and they know that if she runs towards the troll, she will die. Michelle McFarlane also notices what is happening and goes to meet Pete Raston, and they all run to stop Katie from getting to the troll. The troll has gone out of control. It kills 2 animals, and as Katie is about to reach it, the person removes the spell on her leg, and she falls. The troll walks towards her to step on her. The other students wonder how they can stop the troll, but Nano screams halt, and the troll stops. Nano goes to the front of the troll and asks Katie if she can walk. She tells Nano that she can't walk, and Nano says that she will help Katie when she is done dealing with the troll. The other 4 students wonder how it's possible for Nano to single-handedly defeat the troll. Rochelle sees that Nano could be in danger, so she decides it's better to call the troll's attention to themselves to save Nano and Katie. She tries to use her magic, but the troll isn't even bothered by her. Oliver tells them the best they can do is to distract the troll. He asks them if they can all use wind magic, and when they say yes, he asks them to throw their wind magic in a direction. Then he creates a fake dragon cry to distract the troll. His distraction works, and when the troll gets distracted, Nano brings out her sword and jumps as high as possible to strike the troll. As she jumps, her hair changes color to an innocent color. Oliver wonders what kind of person she is, and to their shock, Nano defeats the troll. She comes down and appreciates the students who helped her. She tells them she couldn't have distracted the troll if they hadn't interfered, and she feels numbness in her hand. She tells Katie that she will help her up once she recovers. As a result of their actions that morning, they get separated from the other students. They are kept in a room where Oliver asks Nano if she has a plan. When she stands before the troll, Nano says no, and she doesn't even have a katana. He asks her what she could have done if they didn't save her and says she could have died. She says that it means she was saved from dying on her first day in school, which is a lucky sign. Oliver finds it difficult to understand what kind of person she is, but he knows that the innocent color that she changed to while fighting shows that she has a good tendency for magic. Their headmistress, Esmeralda, arrives. She apologizes for what happened earlier and says the troll had been captured and the injured students have been taken for treatment. She tells them that in that school, what they care about is freedom and results. She reminds them that their life and death are in their hands, and they can either die or live. She assumes that they may think she is joking, but she claims she is serious. She says that out of 100% of them that have resumed school that day, only 80% of them will graduate alive. Some would be consumed by monsters, some would be dragged by the monsters they summon, and with one circumstance or another, about 20% of them will die regardless. The ones that die will be said to be consumed by magic. She claims she doesn't feel bad about that because that is how they have raised the standards of their school. She reminds them of their role and asks if they have any questions. Nano tells her that if she feels headaches, she should rub the sides of her head. Esmeralda asks her if that is the question she has, and Nano says it isn't really a question but advice, because Esmeralda looks like she needs help. Esmeralda says that in the absence of any questions, they should all go for their breakfast. She says that they are free to interact with each other and sit down. They wonder where they will sit since there are no seats there. She casts magic that carries them to the dining room. The senior students join them and welcome them to the school. They tell them that although the headmistress may be harsh, everything she has said is true. The senior students are trying to make the school safer for the newcomers. As it's time to eat, the students reconvene, but this time, Katie isn't with them because she has been taken for treatment. She joins them later, and they introduce themselves. Michelle McFarlane tells them she is the eldest daughter of the McFarlane family. Guy also recognizes her with their family's signature hair. Katie Alto introduces herself and says she is a transfer student from Farnland. Guy Greenhood tells them he is from a family of magical farmers and loves plants. Rastin claims there is no need to introduce himself because his family is common, and he isn't there to make friends with them. He concentrates on his book. Oliver recognizes the book he is reading, so they talk a little. Nanohibia tells them she is from a samurai family at Yamatsukuni. She came there after a man named McFarlane saved her from dying in war and asked her to come. She says the man has the same hair as Michelle, and Michelle says it is her father, who works as a part-time lecturer at the school. Oliver Horn introduces himself as a magician from a long line of magician family. He says he has sisters and brothers who have graduated from that same school, but he presently lives with a relative. They get to know each other better and go to their dorms. Coincidentally, Oliver and Pete are roommates. When Oliver wakes the next day, he goes to cover Pete's body so he won't catch a cold, as he remembers how Pete had warned him not to disturb him when he is reading. Oliver takes a walk where he meets a random lady. He asks her who she is, and she tells him his brother Gwyn has appointed her as Oliver's secret escort. Oliver asks for her name, and she introduces herself as Teresa. He hopes to see her face later in the future. As he walks around, he coincidentally sees Nano bathing naked. He quickly uses magic to create a cover for her and asks her why she is doing that publicly. She says she isn't bathing but purifying herself from the blood of the day before. He asks about the scars he sees on her body, and she says it's from the war. When she finishes her bath, she claims she didn't bring anything to clean her body, so he gives her his coat. She appreciates him and tells him she is indebted to him. He looks at her and wonders that despite how strange and innocent she looks, she has the scent of blood around her. The second episode of this anime begins the next morning at the Kimberly Academy when Oliver and Pete meet with their other friends. Another student named Guy catches up to them in a rush as he almost missed his classes for oversleeping. According to Guy, thanks to a clock in his room, he was able to wake up just in time. Nano takes pride in telling Guy that she doesn't need any alarm clocks to wake up and claims that she naturally rises around 6 in the morning. Guy notices that Nano is finally wearing the academy uniform, so she explains that the uniform arrived at her room the previous night. Because of the uniform, she finally feels like a proper mage, and everyone cheers her on for that, except for Oliver, who loses himself in his thoughts, thinking about Nano's scars, which he saw in the previous episode. Guy snaps Oliver back from his thoughts, asking him why his robe looks damp, and Oliver tells him that he is just imagining things. Pete can no longer endure this baseless conversation and wants to find out what a magic class is like. He gets excited like a baby, so his friends start to treat him like one. Nano expresses that she cannot wait to learn magic, and they together head to their first ever sword arts class. The teacher named Luther welcomes all of the students to the class before heading to practical lessons. Luther first tells the students what sword arts actually are. Pete volunteers to answer what it is. And begins to act like the teacher's pet, so most of the students in the class begin to look down on him. Pete explains to Luther that sword arts are techniques performed using athames, just like the one he is holding in his hand. The use of these athames started 400 years ago when a famous mage named Wilf Batterwell lost a duel to a muggle, or a non-magical, in close combat. Since then, mages have begun carrying athames to deal with attacks from close range and avoid being beaten when they can't chant an incantation. From then on, mages began fighting with swords as well as with wands, becoming the perfect warriors. Luther thanks Pete for his explanation and kicks off the first day of the class by having 2 people duel for the rest of the students. Luther asks for any volunteers who have prior experience fighting, and Nano immediately puts her hands up. One of the students who was looking down on Pete earlier, named Richard, volunteers to duel against Nano. Richard claims to have heard stories about Nano defeating a troll with just a sword, so he wants to see if she truly has what it takes, but he actually wants to show off his own skills and is looking down on Nano, knowing that she lacks in physical combat. Oliver also understands this, so before Nano gets humiliated by Richard in this duel, he tells Luther that he would also like to duel Nano. Oliver tells Richard to back off, claiming that he should be the one to be dueling her, as he was the one who fought the troll alongside her. But Richard can't just let this opportunity go, so Michelle challenges him to a duel instead to end this dilemma. Richard knows that Michelle is stronger than him, but he still accepts the challenge as he wants to look good in front of the others. So the teacher Luther announces to the students that the first duel will be between Oliver and Nano, and then the second duel will be between Richard and Michelle. The first pair heads to the center of the classroom for their duel and bows at each other before drawing their swords. Luther casts an anti-lethality spell on both of their swords so that neither of them gets injured. He tells both of them that the rules are simple and the duel will end if either of them gets inflicted with a mortal blow to the head or chest. Oliver decides to go easy on Nano as he feels sympathetic towards her since she doesn't know how to use magic, but that is a mistake as Nano changes her hair to gray and attacks Oliver with her full power. Oliver barely holds his own against her and tries to deflect her powerful slashes. They clash their swords at each other, and seeing how deadly her skills are, Oliver realizes that Nano definitely has blood on her hands. He loses his upper hand when suddenly Nano begins to get in tears as she begins to remember her past. Oliver doesn't want her to cry at all, so he unleashes his full potential to bring her back to the present. He is in Nano's killing intent gets so strong that Luther gets forced to stop their duel and scolds both of them for breaking his anti-lethality spell. With the duel coming to an end, Michelle asks Richard what he thinks of Nano now. She knows Richard doesn't stand a chance against neither her nor Nano, so she decides not to humiliate him and retracts her earlier challenge. Luther begins the lecture, but Oliver doesn't attend the class. So Nano catches up to him and tells Oliver that she regrets how their duel didn't come to a proper end, so she desires to fight him once again. But Oliver refuses, telling her that he never wants to fight someone like her again. He knows if they battle once again, they will end up killing each other, which he doesn't want as he has grown to have feelings for Nano. So he walks away from her, leaving her in confusion. Later at the academy campus, Guy laments how gruesome today's lessons were. Guy tells everyone that at the spellology class, the teacher Frances was against everything that Luther taught them and gave her reasoning that a mage only needs their wands. That is why Guy is surprised to see internal conflicts between the teachers at the same academy, so he doesn't look forward to attending the next classes at all. Still, he has to, and he goes to attend the third class of the subject, magical biology. The teacher of this class, Vanessa, also reveals herself to be a nut job and begins her lecture by telling the students that as a mage, they must treat all magical creatures as mere resources. According to her, their only task is to learn how to best exploit magical creatures, so she gives them a task by summoning magical silkworms at every student's desk and telling them that they must exploit creatures like this one. For example, mages can make these silkworms grow as many cocoons as possible as long as they feed them with magic. She demonstrates how to do so and feed so much magic to the silkworm that her cocoon turns black and it turns into a fierce monster. So Vanessa tells the students to first learn to control their magic properly so that these silkworms don't turn into fierce monsters. She even gives them the test of making 5 perfect cocoons out of 10, and if anyone fails, they will have to clean up their mess themselves. The test begins, and the students start feeding magic to their assigned silkworms. While some of them fail, Michelle easily turns 5 silkworms into cocoons with 1 failure. Michelle sees that Katie and Pete are having a hard time, so she asks Oliver to help them. She sees that Nano is also having troubles but doesn't tell Oliver to help her, as she realizes they are not talking to each other for some reason. So instead of him, Michelle decides to help Nano herself and ignores Guy, who is also having troubles. With Oliver's help, Pete barely finishes with 5 perfect cocoons, but Katie remains slow and steady as she carefully turns all 10 silkworms into perfect cocoons, as she doesn't want to kill any of them. She takes her time with it but fails to stop the final one from turning black as her mana begins to fluctuate. Still, Katie tries to save the silkworm, but it turns into a fierce monster and attacks her. Oliver and Michelle come to her, but because of that, they end up getting penalized with negative points by Vanessa. Later at the infirmary, Katie treats the wound on her hand caused by the silkworm and apologizes to Oliver for causing him trouble. She explains to him that she doesn't support animal cruelty because her family had a bunch of animals, including demi-humans, and she grew fond of them. She is basically Newt's commander of this anime and claims to have been extremely close with a troll named Patrol and treated him as her friend, even though anyone else would treat it as a threat. That's why whenever Katie sees an animal or demi-human get hurt, she cannot take it. She knows that society needs to do these things to advance and maintain the cycle. She knows that to a mage, everything without human rights is just a resource to exploit. But even though she is a mage herself, she cannot accept that. She tells Oliver that she doesn't want to accept what is normal here at Kimberly Academy, like the troll incident or the previous class. Oliver understands Katie's feelings and gains newfound respect for her as a human. He realizes that Katie's childhood home must have been like growing up among angels in paradise, since she lived with so many creatures. But Oliver believes that she has to adjust now, as this is Earth, not her paradise, and tells her not to act like an angel, as this cruel world holds no place for them. He tells Katie that if she still chooses to remain the kind person that she is, she can, as this is her life, and it's perfectly fine to be more noble than angels. Katie gets surprised after hearing such kind words coming from Oliver right after spouting those heavy blows. But before she can thank Oliver, he again continues with his speech and tells her that cruelty is not everything in this world but just a small part. So, he encourages her to explore the world before making a decision about whether she wants to remain a noble person or a cruel, selfish being like most other mages. Oliver leaves the infirmary after telling Katie that she can face all of her difficulties together with her friends, revealing that the others were eavesdropping on them. Oliver then goes out to the campus and meets with Ms. Karst, who asks him if his first day at the academy was tough. Karst reveals that she has seen every activity of Oliver's at the academy and tells him that he should choose his friends more carefully. She mocks Katie for being an incompetent person, as she couldn't even kill a silkworm, and assumes that she won't be able to survive here. But Oliver makes it clear to Karst that he can choose his friends himself and tells her not to pry into his personal life. He asks what her business is here, and she explains that she is heading to Master Gwyn's workshop, so she has to leave Oliver aside for a while and asks for his permission to leave. Oliver grants her permission, and before she leaves, he tells her to say hello to Gwyn on his behalf. Oliver then joins his friends at dinner and eats the meal together. Katie tells everyone not to worry for her anymore as she no longer feels sick. Katie then turns to Nano and notices that she doesn't look that lively, so she asks Nano if something's bothering her. But Nano claims to be fine. On the other hand, Pete notices that he doesn't have his book with him, so he realizes that he must have left it accidentally in the spellology class and decides to head there. Oliver and Michelle get up immediately to accompany Pete, and Oliver explains to Pete that things that get lost in Kimberly Academy aren't easily found. Michelle assumes that a mischievous fairy could be behind Pete losing his book, and that gives her more reason to help him. So the three of them go back to the class, leaving Guy, Katie, and Nana at the table. Apparently, Kimberly Academy sits on top of a giant labyrinth, which means it basically turns into a dungeon at night. After escorting Pete to the spellology class, the group finds the book lying on the ground, and Pete finally feels relieved. So they start heading back. However, the sun sets, and immediately, their path transforms into a mysterious labyrinth. Oliver tells Pete not to worry as he thinks that the teacher patrolling the school will come to help them. Right at the moment, a voice disguised as one of the teachers calls for Pete, but Oliver warns everyone that this is an obvious trap. So the mysterious person disguised as the teacher reveals herself to be a fourth-year student named Ophelia. Oliver recognizes her name and tells her that he has heard of her evil research. So Ophelia gives up her nice act and releases a spell to entice Oliver to come close to her. Oliver repels her spell and runs away with her friends, but Ophelia won't let them go that easily. With the help of her associate Cyrus, she blocks their escape path. Please note that I've punctuated the text to the best of my understanding, but due to the length and complexity of the text, there may still be some sentences that could be punctuated differently for clarity. If you have any specific concerns